The Sith are the main villains of one of the most influential movie franchises, Star Wars. The most iconic member of the Sith Lords is Darth Vader, a tragic character who used to go by the name of Anakin Skywalker. Anakin was a promising Jedi apprentice trained by Obi-Wan Kenobi, who fell for the dark side of the Force due to unresolved emotional issues by trauma and the manipulations of Chancellor Palpatine, who secretly turned out to be among the most powerful Sith ever existed, Darth Sidious. In many ways, the Sith ideologically oppose the Jedi. The Jedi represent selflessness, tranquility, equality, and seek balance in the Force and peace in the galaxy. The Sith are selfish, passionate, and seek dominance by achieving strength and power. Star Wars generally portrays the Jedi as the good ones and the Sith as the evil ones.
Yeah, so one of the interesting things about the Sith and Jedi philosophy is, if you really read it, there's nothing within the Sith philosophy, right, in the Star Wars universe, that indicates that you have to use Sith powers or Sith philosophy for bad. It just happens to be that the Sith tend to think individualistically, but when one thinks individualistically, it's just a higher chance that they're going to be selfish. And I think that's the interesting dynamic between the Jedi and the Sith. It just happens to be that in the movie we see the Sith as the bad guys because, well, it just makes for an interesting story. But if you actually look into it and really just read the fundamentals of the Sith and the Jedi philosophy, you'll find that it really does not have a lot to do with imposing bad ill towards people, more so as it's about trying to become a more powerful individual. And so if you really look at the subtleties, it's actually quite interesting.
The Force is a mysterious energy field created by all life and binds everything in the universe together. We're all connected by the Force, which flows through every living being. The Force is central to the Sith and Jedi's existence, as both factions rely on its power and possibilities through manipulation. An all-surrounding energy field connecting all life resembles the Stoic concept of pneuma, also called the breath of life, which binds the cosmos together and provides stability and cohesion. An explanation of the Force and how the Sith use it is necessary for understanding their philosophy. After all, the Force is vital to the Sith's existence. As with the Taoist concept of yin and yang, many Force users distinguish the light and the dark side of the Force. The light side of the Force is generally used for defensive purposes and healing. The Jedi Order devoted itself to the light side of the Force, using it for selfless reasons such as protecting other people, justice, and restoring and maintaining peace in the galaxy. The Jedi sought to maintain balance in the Force, which means harmony between all life forms. They consider themselves guardians of what's good. Among the Jedi are Luke Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Master Yoda. The Sith, however, devote themselves to the dark side of the Force, which relies on anger, fear, lust, greed, and aggression, aimed to destroy one's enemies and cause pain and suffering.
What's interesting about this is how much it ties into, if you know anything about Christianity, the 7 deadly sins, which I think this nails the head with, I think, 5 of the 7. But the reason he's saying that is it just so happens to be that when you follow the Sith philosophy, you tend to lean towards doing what's bad. But if you watch the Star Wars films, it's really not that simple. A lot of the descent into the dark side of our main character, Darth Vader, has to do a lot with the fact that it was his own personal experiences and the people he cared about that made him descend into that dark side. And so it's like the famous saying goes, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. That's essentially what Anakin Skywalker creates within his own life.
An essential difference between Jedi and Sith regarding the Force is the rule of two. The Jedi see the Force as spreading fire. The more Jedi, the stronger their collective force. As we pass the flame, our light spreads, wrote Luke Skywalker.
So essentially what he's trying to say is the Sith took the approach of quality over quantity. If you've ever watched Batman, I think The Dark Knight or The Dark Knight Rises, one of the two, but the one with the Joker, the Joker didn't impose his, chaos onto Gotham City by being just like this, leader of an army. He did it very strategically. He did it very precisely. And I know at one point, if I ever hit 500 subscribers, I want to make a video on chaos theory and why I think chaos isn't about, being as big and as chaotic as possible, but chaos is rather a very precise entity, whereas control is it's very broad. You have to take control as much as possible by extending outwards as much as you can, so you have as much control as you can possibly have. And I think people think chaos is this big giant thing, when in fact it's very precise. And so that's what the rule of two stems from. It stems from this idea that you can't have a bunch of people trying to be self-centered as possible, because then the structure that supports the Sith or the chaos collapses in on itself, because everybody's constantly vying for power. So in the Star Wars universe, there was a Sith Lord who invented the rule of two, which was to say that instead of trying to have galactic conquest through a big army, that the Sith would essentially gain power through very precise and very calculating maneuvers. And this is essentially what the story of Star Wars is as we know it, with the first 6 films, right, episodes 1 through 6, is the story of how the Sith were able to essentially control the galaxy for a long time under the nose of the Jedi. So it's actually a very interesting concept when you think about how it ties into real life.
To maximize the power of the Force, it should be concentrated among just a few, ideally one Sith. However, if there's only one Sith, there's nobody to continue the Sith lineage if that one perishes. So Sith Lord Darth Bane created the Rule of Two, ordering that there could be only 2 Sith at a given time, a master and an apprentice.
Yeah, so what's interesting is that though Darth Sidious makes a point that when you spread out, amongst a bunch of, when you spread the Force out, it loses its potency. Yes, to some extent that's true. But you gotta realize that in the Star Wars universe, the Jedi still had, I think it was 1,000 years where they were kind of in control. And the Sith, even though at the end of Revenge of the Sith, they won. I mean, the reign of the Sith was only something, I think, just 60 years. I think it was something really small. So if you look at that 60 years of Sith oppression versus the 1,000 years that the Jedi had, really the payout wasn't worth it. And so while in the Book of Sith by Darth Sidious, it seems like he makes a good point. It just happens to be that because more people tend to lean toward the side of good, that even though the potency is higher within the Rule of Two, that there's just so much good that it'll essentially overwhelm the side of evil.
We take what we desire because we can. We can because we have power. We have power because we are Sith. Like the Jedi, the Sith live by a mantra that summarizes their core philosophical idea known as the Sith Code. The Sith Code is a negation of the Jedi Code, rejecting peace as an ultimate concern while identifying passion as the only force worth embracing.
Yeah, so think about that there. So peace versus passion, right? So peace is something that is kind of spread out across a large array of entities, right? So peace in the world would look like peace in all the countries on Earth. Peace in the Star Wars universe is peace across the galaxy. But then the Sith say, no, screw all that. It's about me, my priorities and my ambitions. And so for them, the means or the end does justify the means, whereas with the Jedi, it's the opposite, where the end don't justify the means, right? So how you do things matters as much as what you get out of it.
According to the Sith, freedom is not achieved through calmness and clarity, but by using emotions as a source of strength to achieve victory and dominance.
And the other thing about the Sith code is that it's not sustainable long term. So if you were to take the Sith code and really take it seriously, like there's no way for one to be successful living by a self-centered philosophy like the Sith code, because then nobody wants to be your ally. Right? So even though the Sith are cool in the realm of Star Wars, looking at it from the eye of somebody who, you know, knows that Star Wars isn't real, you can't move up in the real world only thinking about yourself, right? And I mean, you could be superficially kind, and even that's kind of easy to detect, and you know, there's some way in which superficial kindness kind of comes back at you, but that's why the Jedi code is the side of good, is because it is inherently reliant on you know, helping others and being selfless. Now, the extreme of the Jedi code is essentially what was the fall of the Jedi in the third movie, which is that they became so righteous that they didn't see their own flaws, and so there was a lack of humility.
Before we can understand the Sith code, it's essential to explore the Jedi code first, as these mantras, so to speak, are related. The Jedi code goes as follows. There's no emotion, there's peace. There's no ignorance, there's knowledge. There's no passion, there is serenity. There's no chaos, there's harmony. There's no death, there is the Force.
Yeah, so I do want to dissect that. Obviously, this sounds a lot like Buddhist philosophy, right? When you detach from worldly things and you kind of become emotionless. It's interesting. I do think that the problem is that, you know, what the Jedi Code does is it kind of ignores the individuality of people. When you don't have emotions, it's hard to, like it's essentially saying when you don't have emotion but you feel connected to an individual, it's like you're detached from that individual, even though, you know, that person might be a friend or family. Having no emotion just kind of becomes callous and, you know, detached, and it comes off as cold. And so it's an interesting kind of dynamic there. There's no ignorance, there's knowledge. That one's a good one. There's no passion, there's serenity. But the thing is you can be passionate about a lot of things. You can be passionate about helping others. You can be passionate about your job. You can be passionate about volunteering. There's a lot about passion that brings about the good-natured side of human. There's no chaos, there's harmony. It sounds cool, but the thing with chaos is that when it comes to the individual, chaos is a good thing, right? Chaos is what brings spontaneity. It brings surprise. It brings, you know, the vibrancy of life that allows you to experience the full array of human nature. And then there is no death, there is the Force. You know, that's just kind of the pseudo-religious ideology of the Jedi and the Sith. And so the reason they say this, and I think the reason George Lucas was able to create all this, is because it wants to paint a stark contrast between what the Sith believe in and what the Jedi believe in as well. And so it's what guides their behavior to a certain way.
We can interpret the Jedi Code in different ways. Firstly, the "there is no" parts of the first 4 lines of the code might point to what the Jedi oppose and should be absent. In a Jedi's life, there's no emotion, there's peace. There's no ignorance, there's knowledge. But we could also read these lines as a reality of nature. When there is no passion, there's serenity. When there's no chaos, there's harmony. And thus, it reads as a series of hypotheses followed by conclusions, which show that the absence of phenomena like emotions and passions leads to preferable states. These interpretations find support in Yoda's famous line, and I quote, but beware of the dark side. Anger, fear, aggression. The dark side of the Force are they. Easily they flow." End quote. Furthermore, Yoda's words imply that a Jedi should actively avoid emotions and passions, as they lead to the dark side of the Force, and that one quickly falls into the trap of being carried away by them. The last line of the Jedi Code reads as a metaphysical truth. There's no such thing as death, as in a permanent ending of life. When we die, we simply transform into another manifestation of the Force. Some Jedi even learn techniques to keep lingering in the physical world after they died, as Force ghosts. So there's no need to fear death, it's just a return to the Force. The Sith Code seems to be a variant of the Jedi Code, rejecting peace, making the very things the Jedi avoid their goal. The Sith Code goes as follows. Peace is a lie, there's only passion. Through passion, I gain strength. Through strength, I gain power. Through power, I gain victory. Through victory, my chains are broken. The Force shall free me.
So, like, and obviously, you can see the kind of flaw in the Sith Code, just as there was a flaw with the Jedi Code. The Jedi Code's flaw was that there is no emotion. That's a lie. There is emotion, but that's part of, the living experience. And so, but they were right. He was right in the sense that when he said that when you take away the living experience, everything is serene, right? Nature exists as it is. But then when you look at the Sith Code, it says peace is a lie. That's not necessarily true, because passion isn't the only thing. And then through passion, I gain strength. That is true. If you really care about something, there's a sort of strength behind that. Through strength, I gain power. That is also true. Through power, I gain victory. Through victory, my chains are broken. The Force shall free me. Another one of those, pseudo-religious things. But the thing is that he's right. Like, when you look at, let's just take, a sport, for example. When you're really passionate about a sport and you get really, really good at it, you get stronger at that sport. And so with that strength, you get more powerful at the sport. And with that power, you win whatever game you have. And so a lot of what these ideologies between the Sith and the Jedi, they relate to us in a very nuanced and subtle way. And I think that's what George Lucas was able to draw upon. He was able to draw upon the kind of aggressive yet peaceful nature of humanity to kind of create this beautiful and complex and nuanced story.
Jung believed that we need to explore the dark side of our psyche, as it contains personality traits and qualities that can enrich us if we integrate them. Disparaged features like pride, selfishness, self-admiration, or boldness could be used to improve one's position, exude strength, and simply feel good. It could help us discover our inner Dionysian and break free from slave morality, eventually developing our dark side, or in other words, integrating dark side characteristics may strengthen our position in the material world and lead to worldly success.
Yeah, so one thing I do want to also mention is, let's look at the good sides of both. When you are at peace with yourself, not to its extreme, but to its satisfactory extent, you are more engaged with people, you're more in tune with what's going on, you're more present, you're able to talk to people in a civilized and fun manner, you're able to do a lot of things in a less frantic way. And then when you're in tune with the more passionate or quote dark side of kind of this philosophy, you're getting stuff done. You're, getting good grades in school, or you're going to school, you're going to the gym so that you get stronger, you're reading so that you develop your intellect, you're, on the move so that you don't just live a life of, what's the term for it? Being stagnant. You actually get to see the creations of your effort. You get to bear the fruits of your labor.
Sith philosophy has pitfalls as well, without a doubt. The Sith show little concern for other people's well-being. They oppose equality and charity and don't believe in goodness. The strong must survive. So the Sith...
And what's interesting is this is very in line with how, if you think people used to survive. It was, what's the term for it? Survival of the fittest, right? The strongest survive or the best survive. And that was true, but the thing is, we live in a civilized society, and you can't move up in a civilized society being a sociopath. And you can't live in a thrive in one being a narcissist. You have to essentially help others. And even though for some that might look like artificially being kind and helping others, there is still an element of that. It just happens to be that, morally speaking, it's better to be authentically kind than it is to be superficially so. Now, if you like what you saw today, don't forget to hit that like button, comment, subscribe so you can learn how to develop a philosophy for a better life. When you subscribe to Better Happen Daily, you are saying to yourself, life can only get better from here. Now remember, live within peace, not to its extremes, but to its genuine, satisfactory level. Live for passion, not to its extreme, but to its genuine, satisfactory level. And in so doing, you'll be able to live a better life than the one you are currently living. Get out there and make better happen daily.